It's Wednesday, April 8th, 2020, and here's what's happening. Chautauqua County officials give an update on the coronavirus here locally. What we know next. Plus, a state official joins us live on the broadcast to talk about COVID-19 and much more.
It's cloudy out there right now. Skies are starting to clear out. Details coming up, and News at Noon starts right now.
Live and on demand, this is WNY News Now.
And thanks for joining us for WNY News Now. I'm Justin Gould. Our top story, another person here in Chautauqua County has recovered from COVID-19. The Chautauqua County Health Department's COVID-19 map reports 12 cases in the northeast part of the county, 3 cases in the southeast, and 4 in the south. Now, of those cases, 8 people have recovered, 9 remain under active care, and 2 have died. No new cases of the virus were reported in either Chautauqua or Cattaraugus counties yesterday. Now, local officials are asking residents if they go out to start journaling where they have been. They say this helps health staff keep track of those they encounter in the event a person is later infected with the virus. Tomorrow, live at 3 o'clock, officials are set to hold another COVID-19 press conference update in Mayville, and we'll be streaming that live right here on WNY News Now. Well, people nationwide have expressed concern regarding the economic hardship that they're facing as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak. Congressman Tom Reed addressed those concerns during his weekly teleconference with reporters yesterday afternoon. The congressman says a Phase 4 in the COVID-19 stimulus relief package will likely come into focus in the next few weeks.
I recognize, and I surely did advocate, and we're going to continue to advocate, that right now, given people with the massive layoffs, the economic crisis going off at the same time with the anxiety of the healthcare crisis, putting this type of burden on folks is something we should strive to alleviate in Phase 4 because it's just a burden that's not sustainable.
Now, the congressman adds that every single American is, in one way or the other, being affected by the global pandemic. He says the entire system could be affected due to a lack of cash flow. Of course, WNY News Now will continue to cover the pandemic, putting facts over fear. Well, the coronavirus outbreak has now taken more than 11,000 American lives nationally. But there is hope, as the Trump administration points out that the curve is flattening in areas that have been embraced social distancing. Whitney Wild has the latest from Washington.
The top advisors on the Trump administration's coronavirus task force are commending Americans for what they describe as unprecedented mitigation efforts. Doctors Anthony Fauci and Deborah Birx say those actions may lower the projected death toll to below 100,000 from a high of 240,000. In New York, one of the most intense hotspots, the number of new infections has remained about flat for 2 days. Even still, the next 2 weeks may bring the peak of deaths due to coronavirus, and medical professionals are stepping out of retirement to help.
The thing that's different about it now is because we're all under not only duress, but we're under threat more than any other time I can remember in emergency medicine.
An Inspector General report from the Department of Health and Human Services showed that inconsistent guidance and severe shortages of medical supplies are the 2 biggest problems for hospitals fighting coronavirus. In Washington, I'm Whitney Wild.
All right, Whitney, thank you. Meanwhile, on a call with reporters yesterday, Senate Democrats unveiled the plan to boost the pay of essential workers who are still doing their jobs during the COVID-19 outbreak. Well, several New York lawmakers are working together to introduce legislation that would protect renters from eviction during the response of the coronavirus pandemic. It's called the Safe Harbor Act and would prevent landlords from evicting tenants for unpaid rent occurred during the state of emergency, plus 6 months after that. Now, if passed, it would strengthen the 90-day executive order preventing evictions. Landlords would continue to be able to seek judgments for unpaid rent, but tenants would have the housing stability with no threat of eviction for non-payment in the meantime. Now, Governor Andrew Cuomo says that once the curve shifts downward, Regionally, a plan will have to be implemented to bring life back to normal after the pandemic.
We're not there yet, but this is not a light switch that we can just flick one day and everything goes back to normal. We're going to have to restart that economy. We're going to have to restart a lot of systems that we shut down abruptly. And we need to start to plan for that. And I spoke to the governors, Governor Murphy and Governor Lamont, about coming up with a regional, metropolitan, tri-state approach to do just that.
Also yesterday, the governor announced a plan to bring about $300,000 of relief to New Yorkers with student loan debt. He says several major loan services have agreed to defer collections and waive late fees for 90 days. Well, back here at home, the Chautauqua County Humane Society says they're inviting the community to join them for their first ever Easter egg hunt social distancing edition. Officials say that the traditional Easter egg hunts around the area will most likely not be happening due to the pandemic. So they're hosting a virtual experience on their website instead. Starting this week, the Humane Society has placed 5 Easter eggs on chqhumane.org. Of these 5 eggs will be an extra hard one to find, a golden egg. The first 10 people who find all 5 eggs by next Monday will get to choose the name of one of the Humane Society's shelter pets. That's pretty cool, and certainly a great way to still stay connected with those lovely animals there. And the Humane Society, one of those essential services, staying open to try to keep animals. And as we reported a few weeks ago, Brian Papalea, their communications director there, said that they were trying to clear the shelters quickly in case of an influx of animals due to illness. So certainly doing some great work there in the Jamestown area. Got to say hello to Joseph. Hopefully you're doing well. Happy Wednesday to you. Hello to Alberta, Bobby, Tabby, Pam, Joanna, thanks so much for joining us. Sean, David, Ashley, and Rory. Good to see all of you watching the broadcast today. We appreciate you being here. Well, let's switch gears now and get a check of our First Defense weather forecast. And forecaster Andrew Stevenson is in for Dakota today. And Andrew, there was some pretty heavy rain and winds last night. Lots of pictures of hail out there on social media. Happy Wednesday to you.
Yeah, good afternoon and happy Wednesday, everyone. We're halfway towards the weekend, and last night we did have some pretty potent storms. We had the first small batch run through about 9:30 p.m., and then around midnight we had another batch of heavier storms move through the area. We do have some storm reports that came in from the National Weather Service from local spotters of hail, about 3/4 of an inch in diameter hail down in Frewsburg just before midnight, and around midnight we had about an inch in size in diameter hail that just was recorded in Jamestown. So it was coming down pretty good, and it was starting to accumulate. We had some photos that came into the First Defense Weather Center from viewers, so thank you everyone that sent photos. And this looks like about dime nickel size hail in this photo from Corey. And look at that. I looked outside and saw this, and it looked like it was snow accumulating out there, but that's not snow. That was hail, and it was coming down pretty good. Penny size hail in this photo from Danny. We got more photos here. This one from Gary. And then looks like about quarter size hail. So it was coming down pretty good and windy and hail, and that first batch of 9:30 came on all of a sudden. So here's what's coming up in the weather for this next few days. Today will remain decently warm out there today. A cold front will plow on through as we head into tonight and to tomorrow morning, and that's going to bring with it some windy conditions and the S word of snow showers. It will warm up by the weekend. How much snow are we going to get? And when the warm-up will start, I'll have those full forecast details coming up in just a couple of minutes. But for now, Justin, back to you.
Oh, don't say snow, Andrew. I don't like that, but thank you very much. Coming up, New York State Senator George Borrello, you see there, joins us live to talk about his efforts to help those with COVID-19 by passing modifications to the state's non-emergency medical transportation rules. We'll discuss next.
You're watching WNY News Now, your source for breaking news.
EagleZip.com is your local one-stop shop for all of your home and business computer needs. Located on Fluvanna Avenue Extension, just outside of Jamestown, EagleZip.com sells and services all brands of desktops and laptops, as well as servers and network equipment for your business. All new computer sales include transferring your data from your old computer plus a 2-year warranty. Call EagleZip.com today.
Stop by EagleZip.com today and let us make computers easy for you.
This is Christine Schuyler, Chautauqua County Public Health Director, with a very important message. We need you to make every effort to protect yourselves and our healthcare workers. If you absolutely don't need to go out, don't. If you have a mild cold or flu-like symptoms, with or without a fever, stay home. If your symptoms are severe, call your healthcare provider. Do not go to the emergency room or urgent care. Do not call 911 or go to the ER unless you are experiencing a life-threatening emergency. The best ways you can help prevent the spread of COVID-19 are to wash your hands often with soap and water, cover your cough, avoid close contact with others. Please stay home.
With coverage that matters, this is WNY News Now.
And welcome back to WNY News Now. Joining us live is New York State Senator George Borrello to talk more about the COVID-19 pandemic and how he's working to help those in the district. Senator Borrello, great to have you on, sir.
Sure.
First, I want to start by asking you about the new reforms that were passed in the Senate budget that affects non-emergency medical transportation services here in New York. What has changed there, and how will this help residents of the 57th District?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for bringing that forward. I started about a month ago in bringing up the fact that the non-emergency Medicaid transportation costs had skyrocketed in New York State. I started by presenting the case of just Chautauqua County, one county in the state of New York. When we last controlled it locally at the county level, the total cost billed for non-emergency Medicaid transportation, these are people going to doctor's appointments and things like that, treatments, that the total cost that Chautauqua County had billed to the state for this non-emergency Medicaid transportation was $209,000. That was in 2014. Now look back at 2019, and the cost for non-emergency Medicaid transportation just for Chautauqua County was $2.9 million, a staggering 1,300% increase. If it's happening in Chautauqua County, it's happening across the state. And that's because the state changed the model. Instead of having transportation dispatched locally through our local transportation services here in Chautauqua County, they switched to a centralized transport system. And the unintended consequence was they incentivized these transportation brokers to move people in individual rides versus putting them onto group transportations and more efficiently, because they were being paid per ride versus per person. And this created the incentive for them. And that's why you see all these people running around, all these independent contractors that were coming down from Buffalo. Literally driving down from Buffalo to pick somebody up, in, say, Silver Creek, and then driving them to Jamestown for an appointment. It was just absolutely an outrageous waste of taxpayer dollars. So that, in turn, not only did it increase the costs, which impacts local government, your property taxes, your state taxes, it also was harming businesses like carts, which is vital to so many residents. Because the money that was normally coming from Medicaid to carts to transport people efficiently was now going to all these inefficient single rider scenarios, taxi cabs and so forth. So it was having an impact on carts and all the people that utilize that service. So now with this reform, which I'm very proud to say is happening as part of the budget, we will go back to more efficient ways of moving people around. That will actually work more on the individual's needs and not so much on the reward to the transportation broker financially. So I'm proud that we brought this forward and made a lot of noise about it. I actually had a somewhat difficult time getting the information from the state as to how much money was being wasted. But once we were able to do that, we were able to show that comparison from 2014 to 2019. And in the end, it's a victory for the taxpayers and for the people that want to utilize these services efficiently and effectively.
So what does the new model that will be going into place look like? Is it going to be more of a local scale rather than statewide like it was before?
They're still going to be using the transportation brokers, but what they're doing is they're saying to the transportation broker, this particular individual is now, you're going to be compensated for handling this individual's case. And that means that they're not going to be paid anymore if this person gets taken on more trips. They're going to be paid essentially per individual. And that's how we should look at it. This is the holistic way of looking at this and the individual needs, but without wasting money in transporting people and paying them, paying these brokers by the mile and for the number of trips that they've taken. So the reform is going to be, in essence, you're handling this person as an individual, but moving them in an efficient manner in the shortest way possible. Because again, who wants to wait for a driver to come out of Buffalo to pick you up in Chautauqua County? So the reforms are set in place in the budget. The details will certainly be worked out by the state, and those agencies that will be involved. But ultimately, it's going to incentivize them to use systems like carts and other public transportation systems to move those folks around. And again, this is non-emergency transportation. And keeping in mind also that carts isn't just multiple people on a bus. Carts is also individual service. Carts did majority of their Medicaid transportation was individual service, but it's local transportation. It's not somebody coming in from outside the county to provide that transportation. That's where the savings will be greatest.
Back to the COVID-19 outbreak. Overall, it seems like a lot has changed here in our community and across the state. What has been your role in facilitating the government's response to the outbreak?
We are contacted daily by individuals and businesses that are struggling to find out what happens next and how that they can deal with it. So constituent services, helping those folks, my office, myself, everybody that's involved is working together as a team with our other elected officials, Congressman Tom Reed, Assemblyman Andrew Goodell, and others to try and help these people as quickly and as best as we can. Daily we're seeing changes from the governor's office, whether it's new executive orders or other new edicts and standards that are changing. We're helping businesses trying to navigate the essential service edicts from the governor's office so that they can in turn, can they operate and under what circumstances. We're helping individuals that are trying to access the overwhelmed unemployment system. So that's been our day-to-day, and I'm very proud of my team. They've done a fantastic job. Many of them are working from home, but yet we are still in the office. Right now I'm in my office in Jamestown, and we have folks in our office in Olean as well as people working, doing casework from their homes. We're working nights, we're working weekends, and ultimately we're here to help you navigate this this system in this environment where it's changing moment by moment.
One of the big topics just this week that you've been advocating for is keeping needed medical supplies here locally. I know Governor Andrew Cuomo late last week said that he was going to direct ventilators from upstate hospitals to be moved downstate. Have you had any luck in communicating with him?
Well, in fact, what we did immediately on Friday, right after his press conference where he announced that he was going to send the National Guard to confiscate PPE, personal protective equipment, and ventilators, myself and a lot of other elected officials immediately pushed back. We contacted the governor's office. We put out, whether it's social media posts or letters or whatever else we had to do, and said this is not right. This is not in the best interest of the people here, and it's going to threaten the safety of the folks here in my district and throughout upstate New York. As a result, the governor seemed to have backed down from this. Yesterday, he did issue an executive order. Here he was talking about it on Friday and didn't even issue the executive order until yesterday. And in that executive order, it basically calls for an inventory of equipment, and it was only mentioned, ventilators and BiPAPs and things like that. Did not mention PPE, and there was no mention of the National Guard. So I consider that a victory for the folks here locally. We do not want people dying anywhere in New York State or anywhere in the country for that matter. We want to provide life-saving services to those folks. But keeping in mind that if you're a small rural hospital who only has, say, 5 ventilators, you can't afford to give any up, because at any moment the conditions could change. And the governor, in my opinion, was being a little hypocritical. On one hand, he's saying to us up here, where we've so far, had a very limited amount of an outbreak, that brace yourself, folks, because it's going to hit upstate New York. And he doesn't know when, but it's going to happen. Is basically the message the governor has been sending, right? But then on the other hand, he said, literally, we're going to take ventilators because I don't see you having to use them anytime in the foreseeable future. That was almost exactly what he said. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't have this one-size-fits-all plan for lockdown throughout the entire state, and then on one hand, and then on the other hand, say I don't see you having a need for that life-saving equipment anytime in the near future. Those things just don't go together, right? And still, again, every life is precious, but 95% of the outbreak is in the New York City area, and treating us all the same is a precautionary step. It's to keep us all safe, and I get that. But then keep us safe also by ensuring that should things change suddenly, that we have the proper equipment, the proper life-saving equipment to address those needs here.
And I know one of their big concerns was the fact that eventually the wave, so to speak, would end up here. And I know locally health officials have talked about possibly reopening medical facilities across the state to help. It was reported that some were considering the closed TLC Lakeshore in Irving. Has there been any developments with maybe reopening that facility?
Early on in this situation, myself and, again, Assemblyman Goodell and Assemblyman Giulio from Cattaraugus County, we reached out to offer this because I was hearing that they were considering, taking gymnasiums and dormitories and trying to turn them into healthcare facilities, ad hoc healthcare facilities. Well, why not go to a hospital that was just open a mere, couple of months ago instead? And we presented in writing to the governor's office, all of basically a bullet point of all of the reasons why this hospital is good. The location, the fact that it is, really on the border of 3 counties, as well as the Seneca Nation of Indians. It's right off the thruway, and the fact that it was operating, not that long ago. So we presented all that. But of course, since then, there has been such a focus on trying to open up additional beds and facilities in the New York City area. Not much has happened. However, I know that a state engineer did contact the town of Hanover for some information, and that it is certainly, we did receive confirmation and communication from the governor's office that they received, and it certainly appreciated us sharing this information with them. We even had advocates like Erie County Executive Mark Polenkars, who, again, because we in that particular area, we literally butt up against Erie County, and a lot of his residents, that was their primary hospital. So we've had a lot of support from across the region for this. But I think it's important for people to understand that, I hope it's never needed. I hope that we don't have to get to that point. But if it is needed, that facility should be able to be opened fairly quickly, so that we can address those concerns and treat those folks.
How do you as a lawmaker balance public safety and constitutional rights like freedom of assembly during this outbreak? I know there's been a lot of concern out there with that.
Yeah, and it's been a concern for myself as well. Let me also say that during this budget process, I strongly urged that we pass what I refer to as a clean budget, a state budget that did not include policy. Because number one, we don't know what the financial future looks like for New York State. So adding a bunch of costly policy initiatives into the budget is going to be a challenge to begin with. But also, the state budget process it does not allow for proper input from people. It doesn't allow for due diligence to be done. It doesn't allow for good government practices. So, and now add this COVID-19 situation where, we aren't even in the chamber together having debate and discussion. It makes it even less of an open and democratic process. So, unfortunately, myself and my colleagues who called for this were disappointed with what was passed. But to speak specifically to your point, there are constitutional issues here. At the end of the day, it's like you go back to the old analogy of you have freedom of speech, but you don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded movie theater. So we have to balance the public safety, with our constitutional rights. But at the end of the day, and this is something I spoke about specifically on the floor of the state legislature, is there is this this adage that don't never let a crisis go to waste, and that's exactly what I believe is going on. I believe that the ruling class in Albany has taken this opportunity to seize more power and to trample on our constitutional rights. And when this is all said and done, we have to understand that that has occurred, and that those are going to have long-lasting results long after we're past this crisis. So it's important for us to stay focused on that. It's important for us to understand that just because we have a situation like this doesn't mean you can shred the Constitution.
Well, Benjamin Franklin once said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And there are, especially on social media, those concerns that we've been talking about governments restricting their rights. Do we have any guarantees that once this pandemic's over with, that we'll be fully restored to how things were before?
Well, first and foremost, I love that Benjamin Franklin quote. He said it in many different ways, many different times in his lifetime, because he understood that that is a concern. I feel that right now everybody's focused on, number one, their health and safety, and that kind of is the dominant thing right now. And some people even get upset when you suggest that we're trampling on our constitutional rights, because they have so much fear. And not just fear for their health, but fear for their economic future. But I think we face a similar situation after 9/11, where we went on this kind of security lockdown, and a lot of our constitutional rights were certainly infringed upon during that period. And then we had the time and perspective to look at this again. And I think we will have that same time and perspective in the future after we are past this pandemic. In the meantime, I do believe that we have to protect our rights, and that there are folks out there that are looking to take a political advantage of this crisis in order to seize more power. The ruling class in Albany has certainly shown that in this irresponsible budget that was passed, and we will continue to push back against that. And at the end of the day, this is about the people deciding who they feel represents them best, whether it's in Albany or Washington or whatever, and understanding that this moment in time is just that, a moment in time. But how we deal with it going forward, and understanding that we do need to protect the fundamental rights of our people, is going to be so tantamount going forward.
And some of that protection certainly needs to be implemented sooner than later. Yesterday, we talked with Chautauqua County District Attorney Patrick Swanson, who is advocating for law enforcement now to prosecute people who maybe will spit on officers when responding and then say, oh, I have COVID-19, I have COVID-19. Are you working with lawmakers at the state level or even beyond to try to enforce and maybe pass legislation to provide more protection to not just police, but first responders in the community?
First and foremost, nobody should be spitting on anybody, right? And that's and that should be something that people take seriously. I think that folks that do that, in my opinion, probably have some mental health issues, and if not, they either way they should be held accountable for those actions. One thing with this pandemic is the governor has almost unlimited power. Not only can he suspend laws, he can write his own laws. And so I've stated publicly that the governor should immediately put in place a law that would certainly specifically address that issue. It's very much again like you're creating a situation where that action could lead to much more damaging circumstances. If that was something that not only happened to a first responder or anyone else, it could escalate. And so there should be, in this time right now, while the governor has the ability to do this, to specifically address this pandemic, he should absolutely be addressing this with some kind of fine or penalty that will in turn go away once his executive authority goes away after this pandemic is over.
All right, State Senator George Borrello joining us on the broadcast today, sir. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for. I'm sure we could talk all afternoon, but thank you so much for being here today. And if folks in the community have questions, whether it's COVID or not, what's the best way for them to get in touch with your office?
Well, first of all, you can call the Jamestown office at 716-664-4603. The Olean office is 716-372-4901. You can also reach out to us through Facebook, through our website. You can also email us at borrello@nysenate.gov. That's BORRELLO at nysenate.gov.
All right, Senator Borrello, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's now get a check of our weather with Andrew.
Yes, besides the hail and the windy winds we had last night, we had some heavy downpours of rain. These are some spotted rainfall totals the past 24 hours. We're just over 1.5 inches in Olean, Jamestown, about 3/4 of an inch of rain. Frewsburg, about 3/10 of a rain. So we had the rain, we had the wind, we had the hail. You know what's coming up in soon? The S word. Coming up in just a moment, I'll talk to you about that. Currently outside, it is 46 degrees at the noon hour, winds northwest at 14 miles per hour, a visibility of 10 miles. So let's take a look at what we got for the next 36 hours. The rest of this afternoon, heading into the evening, will be fairly dry. As we head in overnight and into tomorrow morning, as you can see, a cold front is going to plow by into early in the morning. That's going to bring some rain, some heavier amounts of rain, not really any thunderstorms. As soon as that cold front moves by tomorrow morning, we'll be left with a few on and off again rain showers throughout tomorrow afternoon. It's when we head into tomorrow night into Friday morning where we start to get a changeover of the snow with some minor accumulations. Nothing too worrisome, but a few snow showers tomorrow night into Friday morning. So the rest of this afternoon forecast across the region, partly cloudy skies. Clouds are starting to clear up as we head into this afternoon, leaving us with sunny skies. It will remain quite mild today. Temperatures in the upper 40s near the lakeshore to low to mid 50s as we head inland. Looking at tonight's forecast, we're going to start off cloudy. The rain showers begin to develop overnight as that cold front begins to move through into the area. Temperatures in the low to mid 40s. Taking a look at a preview for the Easter forecast that's coming up this Sunday. It's going to be decent out there. Mostly cloudy skies, a few afternoon rain showers, warm as temperatures will warm up into the mid to upper 50s to close 60s. So after a few snow showers on Friday, we're going to get a warm up by the weekend. Let's take a look at that 7-day forecast. Clear in skies today, 55 degrees the high. It will cool off tomorrow, beginning windy, few rain showers, snow showers tomorrow night. It just gets downright cold by the time we get into Friday, as temperatures will be 35. As we head into the weekend, it clears up, it warms up for Sunday. It will remain unsettled heading into next week, but temperatures will remain around average. That's it for News Now at noon. News Now continues 24 hours, 7 days a week at WNYNewsNow.com. For now, have a good afternoon, everyone, and we'll be right back here tomorrow with more news, weather, and sports.